and welcome to SC Global News. From the latest ICC report exposing the surge in violence against Christians in Africa to the Passion of Christ director Mel Gibson's spiritual retreat on Mount Athos, we have many stories to cover. A new ICC report reveals escalating violence against Christians in Africa, especially Nigeria and Kenya. Over 7,000 were killed in Nigeria alone in 2023, with churches attacked and believers displaced. The crisis worsens. ICC urges global action as US recognition for the crisis remains absent.
A fresh report by International Christian Concerns (ICC) warns that a wave of violence targeting Christians is sweeping across parts of Africa, raising an urgent concern among global faith communities and human rights advocates. There has been a sharp increase in attacks, abductions, massacres and mass displacements, particularly in Nigeria, the Democratic Republic of Congo (DRC) and Kenya, now considered the epicenters of Christian persecution since the beginning of this year. Nigeria remains the worst affected. According to reports, militants killed over 7,000 believers in 2023, and such incidents have continued to escalate. In one of the most harrowing incidents this year, 54 believers, including children, were brutally murdered in their homes during a Palm Sunday attack. Other tragedies include the killing of a Catholic priest in Kaduna and the deaths of 11 more in Kebbi State. In eastern DRC, the bloodshed has been equally devastating. Militants linked to ISIS reportedly beheaded 70 worshippers during a church service earlier this year. Widespread destruction has left entire villages in ruins, with millions displaced amid ongoing terror and instability. Local believers face threats, isolation, and abandonment by local authorities. Worship services are often held in secret as Al-Shabaab raids and social hostility intensify. Despite the scale of suffering, neither Nigeria nor the DRC has been officially recognized as country of particular concern by the US State Department, a move that would signal greater international pressure and support. The organization stated that the church in Africa was enduring some of the darkest days in recent history and urged prayer, advocacy, and international action to protect vulnerable communities.
On Saturday, June 28, thousands of pro-life advocates held demonstrations outside 200 Planned Parenthood clinics across the United States. These rallies took place just days after the Supreme Court ruled that South Carolina, and by extension any state, has the authority to defund Planned Parenthood at the state level.
Thousands of pro-life advocates gathered for demonstrations outside of 200 Planned Parenthood clinics all across US on Saturday, June the 28th, calling for the federal defunding of the abortion giant. Pro-life organization Live Action spearheaded the Defund Day demonstrations that took place in every state with a Planned Parenthood business. Live Action president and founder Lila Rose led the pro-lifers in Anaheim, California. She told CNA that although defunding would weaken abortion, the main goal was complete legal protection for the preborn. The pro-life rallies come just days after Supreme Court ruled that South Carolina, and thereby any state that wishes to, can defund Planned Parenthood at the state level. On June the 28th, the Senate voted 51-49, advancing President Trump's big, beautiful bill that includes a prohibition on federal funding for Planned Parenthood. The measure, originally set to defund the abortion provider for 10 years, was reduced to 1-year ban. Planned Parenthood, America's largest abortion business that kills more than 400,000 unborn children every year, receives nearly $800 million in taxpayer funding annually. It also dispenses cross-sex hormones to minors. The business aids sexual abusers by not reporting child sexual abuse and indoctrinates American children through sexual education programs that give explicit sexual information to young children.
In a decision touching on a broader cultural debate, the Supreme Court ruled on June 27 that, for now, school systems must offer parents an opt-out option, allowing their children to be excused from classes when instructional content conflicts with their religious beliefs. The ruling states that Montgomery County Public Schools in Maryland cannot mandate the students be exposed to pro-LGBT books. Pope Leo XIV on Sunday, June 29th, bestowed pallium on 54 new metropolitan archbishops on the solemnity of Saints Peter and Paul, patrons of the city of Rome. The Holy Father urged the archbishops to find new paths and new approaches to preaching the gospel rooted in the problems and difficulties arising from their communities of faith. In his homily, the Pope commented the examples set by Saints Peter and Paul, emphasizing their ecclesial communion and the vitality of faith. He underscored the need to embrace communion as unity within diversity, where diverse gifts come together in a shared profession of faith to further the mission of proclaiming the gospel. Metropolitan Emmanuel of Chalcedon attended the Sunday morning Mass at St. Peter's Basilica, representing Ecumenical Patriarch as head of the delegations sent by Bartholomew I for the solemnity of Saints Peter and Paul. Quoting the Gospel, the Holy Father recalled that the stone from which Peter takes his name is Christ, a stone rejected by men, but made the cornerstone by God. He noted that the basilicas of Saints Peter and Paul are situated outside the walls, symbolizing that what we now regard as great and glorious was once dismissed and cast aside for opposing the values of the world. At the tombs of the apostles, described by the Pope as a millennial destination for pilgrimage, he invited everyone to recognize that we too can live from one conversion to the next. He pointed out that the New Testament does not conceal the apostles' flaws and sins, emphasizing that their greatness was formed through forgiveness. He explained, Jesus never caused just once, reminding us, especially in the light of the Jubilee, that there is always a reason for hope. The Pope ended his homily by expressing his hope for a shared path in faith and communion, and invoked the intercession of Saints Peter and Paul for ourselves, the city of Rome, the Church, and the entire world. After the Eucharistic celebration concelebrated by Cardinal Stephen Brislin, Archbishop of Johannesburg, South Africa, and Cardinal Robert Walter McElroy, Archbishop of Santiago, USA, the rites of blessing and imposition of the pallium took place. Deacons retrieved the pallia from the confession of Saint Peter and presented them to the Pope. Cardinal Protodeacon Dominic Mamberti then introduced the newly appointed metropolitan archbishops, who proceeded to take the oath of fidelity to Pope and the Church of Rome. Presiding over the Mass for the solemnity of the patron saints of the diocese and city of Rome, which included the blessing and imposition of the pallium on 54 new metropolitan archbishops, Pope Leo XIV invited the faithful to reflect on the two apostles. Despite their differing gifts and approaches, he noted, they embodied a fruitful harmony in diversity.
The US Supreme Court has ruled that parents can opt their children out of the Maryland school district's LGBT-themed curriculum. On Friday, June the 27th, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 in Mohammed versus Taylor, stating that Montgomery County Public Schools in Maryland cannot force children to be exposed to pro-LGBT books. The majority opinion was written by conservative Justice Samuel Alito. The practice of educating one's children in one's religious beliefs, like all religious acts and practices, receives a generous measure of protection from our Constitution, Alito explained. In October 2022, the Montgomery County Board of Education approved a group of LGBT-themed books as part of the English language curriculum. According to sgnews, the list of LGBT reading materials for children in kindergarten through 5th grade included a fairy tale about a male knight and a prince who get married, a book on 50 LGBTQ plus historical figures, and a pro-transgender book. Shortly thereafter, many Christian, Jewish, and Muslim parents from various backgrounds widely protested and sued the board. In August 2023, a U.S. district judge rejected the motion for a preliminary injunction, and in May 2024, a federal appeals court upheld the lower court ruling. The Supreme Court agreed to hear the case in January this year.
Chinese house church pastors, lawyers and family members have released a joint statement addressing the fraud charges brought against Linfen Covenant House Church preachers Li Ji, Han Shaodong and brother Wang Xiang for upholding their Christian faith. The statement strongly condemns the persecution of Linfen Covenant House Church and other house churches, denouncing the use of fraud charges as a pretext for religious oppression. On August 19, 2022, Chinese authorities arrested 3 pastors from Linfen Covenant Home Church in Shaanxi. 3 pastors, Pastor Li Ji, Elder Han Shaodong, and Elder Wang Qiang, were charged with multiple charges including fraud. Authorities throughout China often lob charges of fraud against leaders and members of unregistered house churches. Nearly after 3 years, the Linfen Covenant Home posted a statement regarding arrest on social media. The statement read, "Our church experienced persecution on August 19, 2022, and nearly 3 years have now passed. Throughout the trial, the 3 brothers and their legal team consistently upheld a not guilty defense. On June 28, 2025, we received the verdict from the Linfen Yaodao District Court, where all 3 were found guilty of fraud. Li Ji and Han Shaodong were each sentenced to 3 years and 8 months in prison and fined 30,000 yuan, while Wang Xiang received a sentence of 1 year and 11 months along with a 20,000 yuan fine." The Linfen Covenant Home firmly rejected this unjust ruling as their brothers committed no fraud. The church's offerings are legitimate and remain as a house church committed to the Lordship of Christ and a principle of church-state separation. With hearts full of gratitude and obedience, they have accepted this verdict, trusting in Lord's purpose. They are deeply grateful for the prayers and support of fellow churches and the care shown to the families and the dedication of the legal team. The Covenant Home asked for continued prayer for the next steps in the case and for the health and protection of the 3 brothers. China Aid Association believes that the case involving the 3 members of the Linfen's Covenant House Church charged with fraud has evolved beyond a straightforward criminal matter. From the initial incident to the latest developments, the case highlights the growing restrictions on religious freedom in certain parts of China and points to a broader trend of increasingly sophisticated government control over religious communities. Mel Gibson has begun a spiritual retreat at Mount Athos, staying at the Highlander Monastery. His visit, linked to the upcoming sequel of The Passion of the Christ, drew public attention. Gibson expressed feeling a deep spiritual connection and reflected on past backlash in Hollywood for his faith, which he remains proud of. Hollywood actor and director Mel Gibson has begun a spiritual retreat at Mount Athos, staying at the Highlander Monastery, according to reports by Protothema. The 69-year-old is said to be spending several days in silence, prayer, and participation in monastic life alongside Orthodox monks. Observers speculate that the visit is in connection with the sequel to his 2004 film The Passion of the Christ, titled The Resurrection of the Christ, which filmmakers are currently preparing for production. Upon arrival, Gibson was received warmly by the abbot Archimandrite Methodius at the revered Serbian monastery. The monks welcomed him modestly, honoring his request for privacy. His visit, which drew public interest, occurred shortly before Vidovdan, the Serbian national and religious holiday observed annually on June 28. According to the Greek publication Newsbomb, Gibson expressed that he had never felt such a strong spiritual connection as he did at the Mount Athos. In past interviews, including the one with the Joe Rogan Experience, Gibson spoke about facing backlash in Hollywood for expressing his Christian faith, especially after directing The Passion of the Christ. He also said that the progressive circles often criticize Christianity while respecting other religions. However, Gibson said that he took pride in making The Passion of the Christ, calling it his deepest motivation. That's all for today. Until we meet again, God bless and thank you.